What a beautiful morning it is. I'm headed off to a job. And I thought I'd spend a couple of minutes here talking about my channel and my direction and intent with my channel. First off, I'd like to say that I'm up to about 700 videos on trees and tree care. I've got about 100 videos as well on woodworking and woodworking topics and a few other assorted topics, but the majority of them, of course, are on trees and tree care. Thank you all for supporting my channel, and stay tuned, because my goal is to hit 1,000 videos. Might take me the rest of my life, but I'm going to try. So what I'd like to talk about today are the stories that you hear from other tree workers, or the stories that you tell to the tree workers that you are working with, and the lessons that you learn from the stories. I remember a guy that, one of my first mentors, a tree trimmer mentor, a guy by the name of Dick Taylor. This was going back, about 40 years ago. Dick Taylor was a pretty good, wiry old climber who hired myself and my buddy, when I first started the business, to do some of his jobs. And I remember him telling me stories, always at lunchtime. There was always stories, and the stories really sunk in, because when you hear something that happens, it makes you think about it. You think to yourself, I don't want that to happen to me. And he'd tell me horror stories and things about guys that died and things that happened. And some of them were really funny, I remember one story he told me one time that he was up in a tree, and he was, I think it was about 20, 25 feet up, and he was hooking his rope in and unhooking it just as the boss came around the corner and said, "Come on down for lunch." So without thinking, he stepped off the branch and didn't realize he hadn't clipped in yet, and he fell all the way to the ground onto the lawn, got himself up, dusted himself off, and said, "Okay, let's eat." He wasn't hurt, but you remember those stories, you remember those funny things, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have stories, so I'm going to tell you a few of my stories and tell you what happened to me. Well, here's an interesting story. If you look up here, you can see that this area, this tree that's all decayed out here, years ago, we're going way back in time, almost 40 years ago, I was called out here by the city of Saratoga. And what had happened is this big live oak tree, which was growing way out here, broke the end of this branch, and it was hanging up in the tree. And I got called on a Friday afternoon. It was about 6:30 at night. They were having a big event out here in this park, and everybody is on the lawn. And I was asked to get up there and take that branch off. Well, there was nothing else to tie into, and I was young and kind of inexperienced, so I did it. I went all the way up this tree. I climbed it without spurs and went all the way up there and all the way out, and I went beyond that, clear out to about here, and I felt like I was on the end of a fishing pole. And the branch that I was cutting was about 6 to 8 inches in diameter. And the only thing I was tied into was the branch itself. And I was feeling very uncomfortable out there. What made it even worse is there was a crowd of people down here watching me. The guy from the city was out here. Everybody was looking at me. And they said, "You've got to do it. You've got to do it." So I went out there, and I'm at the end of this long fishing pole. And I took a big gulp, and I made an undercut to get rid of this thing quickly. But what I wasn't thinking about was, as soon as that branch broke loose, the whole thing sprang back up, and I was tied onto it. And it threw me up and flipped me around on my flip line, and I was dangling out there pretty much like a fish on the end of a pole. Everybody gasped. I said, "Oh, I'm okay, I'm okay." I threw my legs back up around, got all the way down. But things like that happen. It was exhilarating, to say the least. I know you guys have all got stories of your own, and I'll share some of mine with you. I can't tell you how many times I've come really close to dying. All right, same park, another story. This playground area over here used to be a wooden playground. They were great big timbers, like telephone pole sized pieces of wood. And it was a nice playground, but there were huge oaks that towered all the way around this. There was one big one, you can still see a stump over there. But there was about a half a dozen giant oaks, like you see up around here, that towered over this playground here. So I was out there and I had a big limb that I had to take off, and I thought I could clear the swing set. I thought it would be good. It was 2 upright posts and then a long piece that went all the way over, and sure enough, I slipped and a piece of wood caught the edge of it and broke off the end of the swing set. So City was pretty upset at me. I said, okay, I'll fix it. So I went out and I found another big timber. I think it might have even been a telephone pole. And I spent a whole day rebuilding that stupid wooden playground, only to have it become an unsafe playground that they tore down and decided to put in this ultra safe playground later. Stuff happens. I've had a lot of real close calls and a lot of potential mistakes. This whole area over here was giant oak trees and a couple of giant sycamores. They're all gone. They're all replaced with young oak trees and crepe myrtles. And you know what? I can't tell you how many times I pruned this tree. This big old stump here that they left as a artifact for the children to play on. I used to trim this tree years and years and years ago. I was trying to keep it safe for the playground. But people pressure took over. And all the construction, all the compaction, everything that takes a tree out caused this grand old valley oak to die. Here's another one. 30 years ago, there was an enormous valley oak that was grown right here. It was probably 5.5 to 6 feet across. It filled up this whole area. And I was doing the job. It split. So I cabled the tree together. Actually, I used a big 3/4 inch rope to pull it back together. And it lived on for 4 or 5 years, and something else split. And they took it out. But they replaced it with this valley oak. And what I find interesting is if you look up here, you can see where this tree was snipped, either at the nursery or the gardener, and now it's got 2 sections to it. So hopefully it'll absorb the wound, but it's kind of hard to see here, but you got one branch growing this way and one branch growing this way, so the tree is going to end up being a great big Y shape. And as this side gets bigger and this side over here gets bigger and heavier, I anticipate in about 20 years time this tree will possibly self-destruct as a result of that one stupid top cut. Okay, adjacent to that same park, here's a cable job I did over 30 years ago. And I don't know if you can see it, but there's a triangle set of cables up here that I installed because the base of this tree, the main crotch, was pretty rotten. And this sycamore at the time had limbs coming out here which are now rotten, and areas up over there which are now rotten. And I can see that there is also a cable that's from this tree over to that tree, which I did not install. I wouldn't have recommended it. And interestingly, I see that one of the cables that I put in has been replaced. There's another cable from here to here. I use the old back splice cables, and that's a cable wrap. So why that was replaced, I'm not sure. Maybe the cable failed, maybe the tree blew in the wind and something happened, which happens. I mean, this is 30 years old, so that was replaced by somebody else. Hey, if you like my videos, do me a favor and subscribe. Also, hit the like button. Hey, thanks for watching.